is Stan Ivankovic. I lead up our sales and consulting for the real estate and travel practice here at Environics Analytics. It is with great pleasure and honor to introduce Adam Jacobs from Colliers. Adam leads up the national research team at Colliers, and Colliers is actually the largest real estate firm in Canada. I did not know that actually, but they are the largest. And Adam regularly speaks and contributes to various publications that many of you would see him on, including the BNN, Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, many others, and some really geeky real estate ones, including podcasts, Ranks, Informa, the real estate forums, and many others. So you'll see Adam on the regular circuit speaking about investments, housing, retail real estate, office leasing, of course, and many other areas around real estate and analytics. Today, he'll be covering in his presentation mobility, leveraging mobility and demographics in office and retail real estate. And with that, I'll hand it off to Adam.
Thank you, Stan. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be the bearer of good news. I know it's been a tough couple of years. While we have been at the conference, the U.S. Fed cut rates. So I hope we all feel more optimistic. And they did not cut by 1/4 point. They cut by 1/2 point. So the market is back. Let the investment dollars flow. Everybody's feeling better. But we were all getting a little impatient waiting for that, and I just opened my phone in the last session and had a lot of Microsoft Teams messages. Very happy to be here. Thank you. We value our partnership with Environics. I've been to this conference for years and years, never spoken at it before, so quite happy to be here, see some old friends in the audience, but also people I don't know. Unfortunately, Audi bumped us from the main room with 500 people, but we'll have to make do here. Okay, a little intro on what Colliers is. I'm not assuming we are a B2B company, unlike many of the institutions here presenting. We are not marketing directly to consumers. We are not IKEA or BMW or whoever you see here. We are a B2B company, so it's a somewhat different paradigm in terms of how we use data. All this talk of clean rooms and LiveRamp is very exciting. It's not something that we necessarily leverage. Measuring a changing market, it's been a interesting 4 or 5 years in real estate. Lockdown, work from home, 11 interest rate hikes, kind of interesting on the negative side. It's obviously turning around now, but we've needed data that we've never needed before. Tracking return to office levels in the financial core versus Bloor Young versus Scarborough, that wasn't even a discussion 5 years ago. Nobody was asking for that data. Nobody cared about it. Now it's the number one thing we talk about other than interest rates, which are a little harder to control. Okay, just if you aren't familiar with Colliers, you probably see the listing posters along with some of our competitors. If you're familiar with companies, CBRE or JLL or those kind of companies. We're a commercial real estate company. We do all the asset classes, office, retail, warehouses, apartments, hotels, you name it. And the main function of what we do, as I said, it's not a direct-to-consumer, it's a deal-making, facilitation kind of business. You could say middleman, we call it brokerage, or advisors is the more modern term. So we do, mainly it's about the leasing and selling of properties. It's also all the associated services. We have some of our friends from property management here who do wonderful work with data, managing a mall or an office tower when perhaps there's an owner who doesn't manage it themselves. And then there's all sorts of other things, construction management, strategy, consulting, that's also done by the company. It's a large company, it's a global company. It's the only major global real estate company that was started in Canada, and I guess there's maybe one other smaller one, but it's largely American giants who come to Canada. This is a Canadian company that's grown up and gone global. Okay. Real estate runs on imperfect information. This is the great wake-up call when you join real estate from another industry, as I did, which is it's good that everybody doesn't have the same information and doesn't know anything, as long as we know more than the person we're negotiating against. Or it's sort of like, while there's a desire for more and better information, it sort of runs on asymmetrical information. I know more about what deals have happened, what leases have really been signed, what foot traffic is really like in this property than you do, and that's, since it's a negotiation and deal-making business, that's a very valuable place to be in. It's hard to often know the actual terms of deals. And this has nothing to do with Environics and demographics, just this is sort of the data environment we work in. It's not equivalent, I would say, to some of these consumer areas where the data is much richer and deeper and more transparent, and I just look at every single click in the browser or everything you've done in your iPhone and I know it all. It's much more opaque than that. So the point is, we're always looking for some better information, for some new information, for information that competitors don't have, that maybe landlords or sellers don't have, where it provides us some kind of edge in this process. So much of what we do day to day, and some of my wonderful team is here, is focused on the transaction side. This was leased in a building on Yonge Street. How much space? How much did they pay? Who is the landlord? Did they get a month of free rent? Did they get 2 months? That kind of stuff is what we spend a lot of our time on. But that alone does not make the world spin. We need the outside data that Environics provides. Okay, so we'll talk about this a little bit more. How do we leverage mobility and demographics? I think we're all familiar with the demographic data from Environics that's been around forever. It's incredibly valuable. You know, the average age, the average number of children, the income, the wealth, all of that. What's a sort of newer frontier since I've been doing this is the mobility data. The ability to track how many people are walking through the door of 444 Yonge Street. What is the demographic profile? What's the average age of those people? Or perhaps if we're looking at it on the office side, where did they come from? How far did they go? What mode of travel did they use to get here? What days of the week did they come? Those sorts of things. So return to work is obviously something the term is return to office, because some people are antagonized by return to work. Where is it happening? Downtown versus suburbs, Toronto versus Montreal versus secondary markets, now versus 1 year ago. And it's an area where there's almost no real information. There's just anecdotes. Well, the food court seemed really crowded today. Return to work is back. I was in on Friday and it was empty. Return to work is dead. Like there's just a lot of conflicting information, a lot of wishful thinking. So we are trying to use the mobility data to provide some real insight on this. Small area, but hospitality is one area we also find this useful. We are marketing this hotel. We can say that this hotel has more foot traffic than the other hotel, which is 500 meters away. That's valuable. That's perhaps makes it more desirable. And then retail, I think most people who come to this conference are pretty familiar with how data fits into retail, how mobility data works there. It's not a huge part of our business. As I said, we have our wonderful property management team. They have a much larger play in this area. And then there's some maybe workforce. We use the data to look at, like, if you're considering relocating an office, what is the impact on labor availability, commute times? Okay, demographic analysis. Colliers, as I mentioned, is a property manager. The highest end of asset ownership, we have some friends from Oxford and Cadillac Fairview here. They don't need us. They manage their own property. They have all of this in-house. There are many owners who do need us. And specifically, this is Richmond, BC, where we manage an asset for an independent owner. You are competing against the giants of retail. There's, a Cadillac Fairview mall here, an outlet mall there. There's you need to find your niche in what's perhaps a crowded market. So we need data to get the leasing mix right, to know how to market ourselves. Okay. How many people here know what Environics Footfall is? I don't think this is one of the more common products. Okay, a fair number of people. Environics Footfall is the mobilescapes for dummies. It's, if you don't have time to make all the geofences yourself and do all the analysis. What you get is a one-page Tableau report with a lot of drop-down menus that says, pick your province, pick your city, pick your category, retail, hotels, travel, pick your brand, pick your location, and so on, and it allows you to drill in and kind of instantly get weekly foot traffic data at a very granular level if you want. Literally, this TD branch here versus the BMO branch across the street, or at a much more aggregated level, like in the entire province of Ontario, foot traffic at TD versus foot traffic at BMO. So it's the flexibility of being able to drill up and down is very valuable for us, because sometimes it's a matter of individual leasing. I'm looking at this corner in Milton, Ontario, and I want to be here. Sometimes it's much more strategic, kind of big picture. How are we competing? What place are we in? Our coffee brand isn't growing as quickly as Starbucks because we can benchmark it that way. So it's a very simple tool, but it's a very powerful tool. I would say probably a tool that's used daily by the research team, just in the ability to generate a very quick summary. And this is just foot traffic. All of the sophisticated stuff about distance decay and detailed demographics is not here. It's just literally how many people walk through the door, but often that alone is a great starting point and something you would be surprised how many people maybe don't know that, or they have their own data, but it's kind of lagging, or it's self-reported, or it's missing for certain areas, or something like that. So Footfall, a wonderful tool in the Environics toolbox that provides us kind of immediate, simple reporting on this topic. Okay, the more complex question for us, number one issue for our industry, as I said, perhaps interest rates has exceeded this as number one, but certainly return to office is number two, if that. So it's been very confusing in the last couple of years. There's been a lot of fits and starts. There's been a lot of comparison to the US. There's been a lot of comparison to the cities. There's been a lot of diagnosis of what the labor market, the infrastructure, transit, crime, you name it. But like, we need some real data on this. Ideally, I think for us, data that shows an upward trajectory, but just realistic data regardless, an ability to maybe compare markets to each other. I'm pleased to say this data was featured in the Globe this week with an article about downtown Ottawa being quite empty and the federal mandate for return to work, and they said data from Colliers says downtown Ottawa is still more than 50% empty based on the return to work tracking, which of course we source Environics for. So there's a slight challenge here, which is return to work levels are 100% at everything not related to the office. Your child's school, the mall you go to buy things, the cannabis shop, whatever. Return to work levels are 100% there. So it's a little unrealistic if I just draw a polygon and say, I want to know how many people went to work here. That number is quite high. What we need to do, and the challenge kind of technically, is carve out the part of a location. If we're looking at Richmond, BC, I need to only look at the office areas. It's useless to me to look at a military base and a school and a government service facility and a college and all of these things and say return to work level is full. Of course it is. The issue is the offices. So we've done some work on the GIS side. We have our own submarkets that we look at, but within those, a submarket might be a large area, in Mississauga or something, the vast majority of which is not office area. So we need to do some GIS manipulation to identify those, make a little buffer, and find the office area only. Downtown, this doesn't matter. For downtown, if we're talking about the financial core, for our perspective, it's basically all office. Yes, I know there's the Path and the Steakhouse and a couple things, but it's simpler to just say that's all office. The second you get past about Bloor Street, it's not realistic to say everything is all office. Okay, so we have created our own in-house report, which leverages the WorkplaceNow data, manipulated through some of our GIS work, then placed into Power BI, a tool I'm sure we're all familiar with, like Tableau, a sort of reporting tool, a way to make simple dashboards. And we are able to provide actual real data. This example is Calgary downtown versus Montreal downtown. But again, like Footfall, there's a flexibility where we can say, we can look at this at the national level, we can look at this at the city level, we can look within the city at downtown versus suburbs. I can look at King West versus Scarborough. Like, we can drill down and down and down, not to the individual building level. Unfortunately, that's just because of the privacy requirements of the data, that's not possible. It only goes down to a DA level, which we then summarize a little higher. But it allows us to really drill up and down and get some insight where a landlord has concerns about return to office area, or maybe the reverse, a tenant has concerns. I'd like to be in an area where it's lively, where we're not the only ones going back to the office because I have plans. Okay, you don't want to be in this area, you want to be in this area. Or I'm hearing that the suburbs are livelier than downtown. Okay, that's just because you see all the cars in the parking lot. Let's go look at the data and see what we can get. This probably isn't a perfect metric like everything else. The thing that we've found is that the population of Canada has grown a lot in the last 5 years, as Doug Norris or anyone else will tell you, which means over time, the number of people returning to work is higher and higher and higher, just because there's more and more people. So it's maybe not 100% apples to apples when I say compared to 5 years ago or before COVID, we're 62% back to office. There's some moving pieces in there, but we still find this very valuable. Okay. Base demographic analysis. We, like everyone, use the basic Environics data. It's very useful. The appraisers who have to actually come up with a value for a property love this stuff, because we need to figure out if it's a retail property, well, what's the average income in the area? What's the catchment area? How many people with children are there? This is simple demographic data adds a lot to the process of site selection, appraisal, and increasingly we find with the job market the way it is, or maybe the way it was, people are concerned about, look, I'm going to open something here, and my main concern is I'm not going to have anyone to work there, and that I'm going to have to, apply for temporary workers or something like that. The demographics are very helpful, saying, okay, no, there's already 10,000 people who work in the logistics industry within a 10-minute drive. You're good, go ahead and develop and open it. Okay. And we built a number of things in-house where people are able to kind of self-serve their own demographic reports rather than coming to me and the team every time, what's the average household income? There's just a little online tool which says, select Belleville, Ontario, current year, press the button, and it spits out a report with all the data. So very valuable for us. Okay. I mentioned that there's a specific property in BC that we manage where we did an engagement with Environics to get some deeper insight beyond just the base demographics. Who are our customers? It's often easier to know your own customers than the customers of the people you're competing against. That's often the blind spot in these retail environments. Environics was able to give us excellent data, not just on ourselves, but on our competitors, and then you can have an honest self-assessment of where are we in the market. We're not the luxury option, we're not the discount option, we're kind of in the middle, which means we have to have a certain strategy for marketing, for growth, for leasing that maybe isn't the same as the malls that we're competing against. So we found that actually the demographics were not very different. Again, this is Richmond, BC. This is not like a massive city. There's a number of malls. They all, largely attract a similar population, but it's still very helpful to benchmark yourself on the categories: age, income, family size, those kind of things. Okay. And then my wonderful team is also leveraging some somewhat more advanced work in this area. So to me, the magic really happens when the demographic data is combined with the real estate data a little bit more. The demographic data by itself has limited value. You should open a store here. Okay, well, there's no retail spaces available here. That's not a very useful, it's a great starting point, but ultimately it needs to be overlaid with where is land available, where are retail listings available, Maybe I could develop. What about that? What would the time frame be? What would the cost be? That sort of thing. So I don't want to mention the client specifically, and I don't even know if the deal is done on this one, but this is the more complex work that we're able to do, leveraging partly Environics data and merging it with the real estate data, which is we want to open a new school. Our target income is suburban, high-income Asian families, and we want to be in an area that doesn't already have a competitor immediately there. Okay, there's already a lot of variables there. There's ethnicity and income and family size, but then in the real estate size, it's, okay, I don't want to be downtown. I want to be in the suburbs. I want to look at the existing world of private schools and make sure that I have, like, I don't want to open this and then find there's 20 competitors and I can't get any students to enroll. So pretty sophisticated client. They have their own requirements in terms of we want this level of income. We want to be in an area that's growing because it's a loss leader at first and we're going to grow our way into profitability. But then we are able to overlay the real estate data about what's available, what are prices, what's the land price per acre here, where are there listings where you could transact a deal immediately. Land's a very difficult market right now because of how hard it is to finance and the fact that it doesn't generate income. It's a very hard market to be in. So very valuable to be able to combine the demographic data, which is the core of their business, with the real estate data, which is about what's available, what can I get now, is it in the right place, and do I have kind of a moat, as they say, in terms of the lack of competition. Okay, so this is, where we would like to get to. I think, Footfall is a wonderful tool. It's fairly simplistic. It's a descriptive, backward-looking tool that just says, this is foot traffic up to this point. It's trending up. It's trending down. There's a lot of noisiness in that, too. That's one of the challenges we find in weekly data like WorkplaceNow or Footfall. Oh, the DVP was closed this morning. Return to work levels are now 40% lower than they were the week before. So it's great to have that granular detail. It's also incredibly noisy. Oh, Easter was on a different weekend this year, so when I look at the year-over-year change, the data looks terrible and things are down 40%. So there's a lot you need to control for. Sometimes we just end up rolling that up to a higher level or only using the latest data or something because it's wonderful to have that level of granularity. It also introduces a lot of messiness and problems, like the floods in Toronto this summer had a massive impact on the return to work data. I don't want to overcorrect and look at that and say return to work is dead because the major highways in the city were all closed. But you have to add a lot of context to those things. Okay, and then let's not forget the fun part, generating marketing content. We are ultimately a part of the marketing apparatus of Colliers, not support, not investment, not deal making. So we find this data quite useful to come up with little quick hits for social media or other things. Footfall is great for this. It's weekly data. The NHL playoffs start. Let's go poke around in Footfall. Did you know that visits to the movie theater went way down and visits to the beer store went way up? But we can even drill into, well, I'll only look at the markets where they had an NHL team in the playoffs. So we're going to look at Winnipeg and Toronto specifically. So it was fun. This isn't the deepest analysis, but again, it's something we have that our competitors don't, that we've got some traction out of. It's all generated from Footfall and referenced, of course. We've done some sort of bigger picture, 10 trends in foot traffic. Again, same kind of thing. We just poke around, slice and dice. It looks like because of inflation or something, there's kind of limited growth at full-service restaurants. Fast food restaurants are growing more quickly. Okay, that's an insight for our clients. It's shareable. We get some good response for that. And let's not forget my favorite part of generating months. Who's that handsome devil on the right? Our Environics sales rep was kind enough to come in, do a podcast, which is part of our omni-channel. We have social, we have web, we have audio, we have everything. So we do appreciate Environics' partnership with us in this area as well. Anyway, thank you. I think we're down to just the last couple minutes, so I welcome any questions, and thanks very much for your time.
So we'll open it up to questions, and I know there's some folks in the room here that can bring some mics over. So we'll start with any questions. I know we just got about 3 or 4 minutes here, though. Nobody wants a free site selection report from Adam's team. No one wants a site model or something.
Oh, I think we have one.
We have a question over here. Oh, there is no mic. I made that up. Okay.
No, Sandra has one.
Okay.
There we go.
Hi, for your workplace activity tracker, are you able to break it down into different office class, like Class A, Trophy, Class B?
That would be, the question was, can we slice and dice the assets to AAA versus A, B? A lot of discussion in the real estate world about the better assets performing better. Unfortunately, not really, because it doesn't go down to the building level. So I would love to do path connected versus non, AAA versus B, but it's just not quite that granular where we can like carve out individual buildings within a submarket and look at the return. Yet, I don't know, we'll see. But that isn't something, yeah, there's limits, a couple limits. The other one we get all the time is, I want to look at Monday morning versus Tuesday morning. No, it's just like, there's some limitations, I think they're privacy related, where it's like, you can't slice it quite that fine. So unfortunately not, fair question. I think anecdotally, we'd all say the AAA buildings are doing better, more traffic, but yeah, it doesn't quite go down to that level.
And is that tool available publicly on the Colliers website, or is that only available through the advisory
No,
service?
you have to be a Colliers client to, we've gone back and forth on this, but like, it requires a lot of explanation compared to some other things. Yes, we just kind of give it away for free and put it out there. As you can see, there's a certain level of explanation required to just how did we get to a number like 62%. So we haven't like thrown it up on the website, but maybe we should. Maybe it's something to consider.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Question here and a question over there.
I'll just yell, Stan, that's fine.
Okay.
Have you done any strategic research on sort of offices moving outside of the core huge CMAs? I own some buildings in Guelph, sort of trying to find the new satellite offices or trends of new offices, areas, co-working, whatever, popping up around GTA.
Yeah, the question is about like secondary markets, basically. I saw the Doug Norris presentation. Clearly, people are relocating outside of Toronto to Guelph, Kitchener, Cambridge, Barrie, Kingston, whatever. I'm not sure the real estate has like adjusted that quickly, though. Certainly, like the development side, I haven't seen 100 new buildings being built in Kitchener or anything like that. It's a very lagging industry in that sense, and the challenge is all of those people kept their jobs in Toronto, as we know. So I follow the logic of, well, shouldn't there be an office in, Kingston or something like that? But I'm not sure we've seen that much evidence. Like, just because there is a tendency to reduce the office footprint. I'll say one, though, which we heard, which was a major tenant who I can't say, but a brand everyone recognized, saying, we're going to open an office in Barrie because we give up. We can't get the employees back to Bay Street. The employees all move to Huntsville or Collingwood or whatever. So, there's lots of offices in Barrie. Why don't we just open one there? The employees will be happier. We already have it all set up. I think the challenge that we find is the big major occupiers who already have IT, HR, legal, everything figured out, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. Okay, sure, whatever. We can open it anywhere. It's the smaller tenant who's like, they don't have that massive infrastructure to set up just a brand new office anywhere. So I think that's why we've seen a little less of it. It's a hot topic, though, certainly, with like people leaving the city. Was there one more
I
question?
think we got time for one more question.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Have you done analysis internally to measure the advantage of using mobile data?
No, but I think we've, like, certainly on the marketing side, we've gained a lot from it, and it's just something that we know that the competitors don't have in terms of mobile data. So it's a differentiator just in the process of like, ultimately it's the same 5 or 6 firms pitching every client saying, we can list your property, we can market your property, we can sell your property, we can lease your property. We have something to offer that the competitors don't. So it's probably a fair question that we should do more about maybe the value of it, but I think it's been nice to have something different, and return to office is just such a burning hot question that like just being able to provide any number at all has great value, even though there's a lot of questioning of it, disagreement, but still we have a number, and without that it's just chaos. So thanks everyone.